Welcome in, Yuri. Seeing the transcript going. And I'll be monitoring the chat if you prefer to communicate that way. All right, let's get going. So welcome to plugins and GPTs in ChatGPT, the GenAI Marketplace Examined. My name is Greg Bem, and I'm one of the faculty librarians here at SCC. This is spring 2024, and this is the first time that I'm running this particular presentation. So welcome aboard. This session is being recorded right now, so keep that in mind when you participate. The recording will be shared out after the presentation is over. Few outcomes for today's presentation. We're going to review GenAI definitions. We will be exploring the concept of GPTs in ChatGPT Plus. We will test the functionality of GPTs based on student and employee interest. And we will discuss potential GPTs and the impact on learning, life, the universe, and everything. So today, this will primarily be a demonstration and lecture session with me talking about what we're investigating, but we will be exploring together. So consider this an exploration of ChatGPT and its GPT functionality. There's no right or wrong here. A lot of this technology is emerging, so we're exploring it together, and it's important to recognize the openness of this presentation too. So in that way, we're going to focus on using ChatGPT in ways that are relevant to you. I have experience with some of this technology, but I really want to know what you're interested in. So please engage, interact as you can, and that will help me focus when we're going through the platform. The general outline for today, we're going to start with those definitions. We're going to look at some demonstrations and an overview of the user interface, and then we're going to explore further as time allows. So let's start with some definitions. I bring this up in the Intro to GenAI presentation that I run, and this is a very simple, but I think effective way of describing generative artificial intelligence. Some of you may have experienced GenAI variety of ways, shapes, and forms, but it's important to remember what GenAI actually means. So GenAI refers to deep learning models that can generate high-quality text, images, and other content based on the data they were trained on. And that's IBM's one-sentence definition. Those models are technology models. They're operating in computer systems and require a lot of hardware, technology, servers, et cetera, to operate and function. But really what this comes down to is we're seeing a type of technology that can create text, images, and other content based on other types of content that it reviews and is quote unquote trained on. The actual type of technology behind generative AI is called large language model, or LLM. And IBM's definition of LLMs is that they are a category of foundation models trained on immense amounts of data, making them capable of understanding and generating natural language and other types of content to perform a wide range of tasks. So I bring this more technical definition up because we need a link to what we're going to be looking at today, which is the GPTs. And before we get to what GPTs are, it's important to recognize what the acronym GPT is. GPT is Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and that is a version or a type of an LLM, a large language model. This is the LLM that powers tools like ChatGPT, which are showing up all over the world and impacting everything that we're doing today. And some of you may have experience with it in a workplace setting or in an academic setting or as a student. And so if we have the name of the large language model, GPT, which is used in ChatGPT, we can recognize that that is the acronym that leads us to these tools. The GPTs are tools that are custom versions of ChatGPT that users can tailor for specific tasks or topics by combining instructions, knowledge, and capabilities. They can be as simple or as complex as needed, addressing anything from language learning to technical support. So the GPTs are not individual language models. OpenAI chose to call their tools, their customizations of ChatGPT. They call it GPTs, which is a little bit confusing and disorienting, but that was their decision. And so we can think of these GPTs as customized versions of the GPT LLM, customized by users. And those users, we're going to dive into this in a little bit, but those users can be anybody. They can be individuals, they can be organizations, they can be companies. We will see that as we explore the marketplace where these GPTs live. Who can create GPTs? According to OpenAI, and this is from an older blog post, plus team and enterprise users can create GPTs this week through the GPT Builder. Users can discover useful and fun GPTs from creators in the GPT store, where we spotlight the most useful and delightful GPTs we come across in categories like productivity, education, and lifestyle. Free tier users can discover and use GPTs in our GPT store with message limits. So two things I want to highlight. One, we're looking at this today through a Plus subscription lens. I have access to a Plus subscription, so we will be taking a look with what I have access to. If you have a free account, you should be able to do as OpenAI says. You should be able to still discover and use them in a limited way and probably not be able to create your own. This is always changing though. So while this is the latest quote that I was able to find, things may have changed since I found the quote. One other thing I want to highlight is this word here, creators. So creators is a fun word to think about when we're thinking about a marketplace, a concept of a marketplace, and a concept of contributing to an ecosystem of created material. And for a long time, using generative AI tools has been done kind of in isolation. There have been more shareable tools and technology with some of these, or shareable features and technology with some of these tools, like sharing chats and bringing in other people into viewing chat and conversation history, that sort of stuff. But this is kind of the next level, creating and having peers that are creating and having an ecosystem of a variety of creators coming together to share their work and really amplify what they're interested in using these tools for in a way that is open and accessible in a community sense. So that's what we can think about when we move into the concept of the marketplace. Traditionally, a marketplace is a place where there are multiple vendors, individuals who are bringing their goods or their services into one space and providing those goods and services for a population, an audience to engage with. And that can be proprietary and at cost, or in a way that makes the vendors money, or it can be free products and services and goods. And that's the way that we're kind of moving with LLMs and with the Gen AI world. So we're going to see this in action in just a minute. But the GPT marketplace is exactly this metaphor realized. We are seeing a quote unquote store where people, individuals, organizations, companies can share the work that they're doing and invite others to participate in using it. And the way this looks when we go to ChatGPT's interface and see the GPT marketplace in its store is that we see these GPTs, these customizations presented by categories of use. We see the featured GPTs highlighted at the top of the screen. And we see an interface that is very fluid and constantly evolving. It only came out a few months ago, this GPT or customizable ChatGPT interface arrived just a few months ago, and it's changing every day. We see new GPTs arriving, and we see new interesting new things that are being created. One thing to note, though, is that while there is a quote unquote marketplace around these GPTs, there's also personal GPTs. So you don't have to publish the work that you're creating with this new customization interface through ChatGPT. You can keep it private, you can keep it personal. And I think it's really important to recognize that, because these customization features and functionality are really powerful and can be really helpful, but there can be some anxiety for individuals around putting their work out there in the world. So keep that in mind. The other thing to recognize right now, and it's not on this slide, is that at this time, GPTs do not cost anything extra. It does cost a user more to create a GPT. You need to have the Plus, Team, or Enterprise subscriptions. But in order, the ability to access and use the GPTs is available for all of the tiers of ChatGPT, and it doesn't cost free users anything extra to use them. So unlike an app store, for example, on your phone, like if you have an iPhone or an Android and you access the app store that way, where many of the best apps cost money, or you're in Microsoft App Store, the Microsoft Store, or you're in Steam if you're a gamer, and you often pay to have access to new content and new tools and applications. At this time, most of these really interesting tools, these GPTs, are not costing any money. Now, one thing to note, though, is that they can connect to third-party apps through APIs, and sometimes those third-party apps cost money. So there are some costs, hidden costs out there at the moment. But on the surface, things are currently free. And where this marketplace evolves to start making individual creators money is to be determined. So let's dive in. But before we do that, does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. And I always wait the full 6 seconds. Not seeing any unmutes, so we will dive in. All right. So before we actually start exploring the GPTs themselves, I'm going to do an overview of the ChatGPT interface, just to remind folks what ChatGPT looks like when you're logged in. And if you're watching the recording, at any time in the future, this might look slightly different. It's always changing. So hopefully it will look similar to what we're looking at today. But just to explore what this is, in the middle of the screen, we have the majority of the ChatGPT functionality. The center panel here, this is where all of the conversation that you're having with ChatGPT will live. ChatGPT provides a few pre-generated prompts to get the gears spinning in the head, to get folks thinking creatively about how they might use ChatGPT to do some work or to be creative. And then underneath these prompts, we have the message ChatGPT prompt bar, which you can use to start your own conversation. This paperclip allows you to upload files from your computer, or connect ChatGPT to a cloud service, either Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. And then it will have access to files that you point it to. And why is that important? Because if you do share files of any kind with ChatGPT, it can train its local functionality based on those files. So for example, you could add your resume and ask it to review your resume, or you could upload an ebook and ask it to only respond in the tone of the ebook. Those are a couple simple examples. You could add data sets and have it analyze data, that sort of stuff. One thing that I always like to remind folks as we're thinking about bringing in external information and data into ChatGPT are the privacy concerns around the data that you're adding, data and information you're adding to ChatGPT. We do not know how the creators in OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, are using that information to inform their interface and their platform. So keep that in mind. And we don't know how secure it is. About a year ago, ChatGPT was hacked, and the conversations and the information that were in every user's account were actually made vulnerable and potentially compromised. So keep that in mind. I do not recommend adding personal or sensitive information to any of the conversations you have in ChatGPT. That being said, moving on from there with the interface overview, ChatGPT 4.0, that is the current LLM, the current version of GPT that is activated in the system. I'm not going to go into the differences between each of the model versions. 4.0, 4, and 3.5 are the three that are available. You can Google the differences, and perhaps there will be another presentation or workshop that explores those in the future. The upper right, this little bunny icon, that's my profile icon for my email account, but this is kind of your settings menu. You can see the plan if you're paying. You can get to your GPTs. This actually wasn't working yesterday, so we'll look at that later again, but that is where you would access the GPTs you have created. You can customize ChatGPT, you can go into your settings and you can log out. And finally, on the left-hand side, these are all of your GPTs that you've accessed recently, including ChatGPT. Froggy Friend was a GPT I created as an experiment recently. Planty was the GPT we demonstrated in the previous workshop on GPTs, and then accessing all of those GPTs in the quote-unquote GPT store can be accessed through that link. And then, as has always been the case with ChatGPT, all of the conversations you've ever had with ChatGPT or GPTs will show up on the left-hand side. And if you want to start a new conversation, a new chat, you can always click on the chat button. Any questions about the ChatGPT interface and just that general overview I provided before we keep going? Okay, so let's dive into the GPT store. I'm going to click on Explore GPTs. And again, this is the marketplace. This is what is centralizing all of those creative efforts from individuals, organizations, and companies. And even something you create could show up on this screen if you made it public. So I want you to keep that in mind as we're going through this overview. So discover and create custom versions of ChatGPT that combine instructions, extra knowledge, and any combination of skill. At the top of this screen, we can search GPTs here. It will show you the recently used GPTs. I think that it's interesting that DALL-E, which was previously its own application, its own platform through OpenAI, has now been completely integrated as a GPT, as a customization of ChatGPT through this platform. As we scroll down, we have the categories that OpenAI has defined. So we've got top picks, writing, productivity, research and analysis, education, lifestyle, and programming in the sense of computer programming. And so these are the six, which are the categories that the organization that created this interface have defined. These could change. These could just be based on what people are creating the most often, or it could be something completely arbitrary that we're not privy to, something that is part of their mission or agenda. Not sure, but we will see some examples of each of these. The top picks are curated top picks. So that means that someone or someone's from OpenAI is selecting these as highlights of the week, highlighted GPTs. So again, we can think of these as customized versions of ChatGPT, but I think it's really interesting because as we look at these, we might also assess them or think about them as apps or as products from other organizations or other people. So this first one is Adobe Express. This is Adobe, as in the makers of Photoshop and Illustrator and so on. And they've created a customized version of ChatGPT, a GPT, that is all about Adobe. And it allows you to quickly create social posts, videos, flyers, and so on. I'm hovering over this. If I click on this, it will actually open up a little profile of what this app is. It will show ratings based on the users who are using it and have rated it. And it's, I'm assuming, a 5-star scale. It's a 3, so maybe not the best, but it is a featured one. Shows its ranking in terms of its category, productivity. And it also shows how many uses it has had in terms of the number of conversations in ChatGPT. So in this case, there's 100,000 plus conversations. It also provides some nice examples of how it's being used. Conversation starters is how they call them. So make a flyer to promote my yoga studio grand opening, create a TikTok of my morning skincare routine, design a Facebook post for my gluten-free donut shop, so on and so forth. It does provide a list of capabilities, so it can actually do things outside of ChatGPT. Doesn't dive into that, but I'm assuming it connects to some Adobe technology, and it can analyze data. And then it shows a breakdown of ratings. And then similar to using a phone app store, it will also tell you if there are other GPTs that have been created by the same creator. So in this case, Adobe.com only has this one GPT available. And if you wanted to start using it, all you'd have to do is click Start Chat. We will practice using a GPT here in a minute, but let's keep going with the interface for the GPT store. So we've got Adobe Express, TutorMe, whimsical diagrams, and Code Copilot as examples here. Underneath the featured, we have trending. So again, similar to other digital marketplaces, we have a list of the most popular GPTs by our community. I do want to highlight that they are emphasizing, OpenAI is emphasizing this as a community at this point. Very open, inclusive, welcoming language. We still are not having to pay money for any of these fun-filled and exciting and maybe advanced services. And at this stage in OpenAI's store, they are not emphasizing the cost or the money-making elements of this marketplace. So reiterating what I said earlier. But we live in capitalism, so we should expect there to eventually be, you know, free and paid GPTs down the road. But yeah, so some of the trending ones, we've got an image generator, Write for Me, write tailored, engaging content with a focus on quality, relevance, and precise word count. Scholar GPT, critical reading skills. Canva, which is a really popular platform that's kind of like a browser-based Photoshop. Consensus, which is a research app, and Logo Creator. One thing I like to point out about this is that this may or may not be derived from the data. It may or may not be automated, but let's say it's automated. Let's say it's really being designed and curated in a way by the creators of OpenAI. As especially for educators, this can be really problematic because there's a lot of these tools out there that may be misused by students. And for example, Write for Me, I'm not sure exactly how this works, but some of the most problematic tools that we've seen arrive with generative AI technology are tools that can automate processes for students and for people in general without inviting them to use critical thinking skills and critically think about what they're doing as they use the tool. So let's say Write for Me is one of those tools. Not saying it is, but let's hypothesize here or put in a hypothetical. Let's say it is one of those tools. If it is promoting misuse and misconduct, and it's being automatically put to the top as a trending and popular GPT that maybe users of ChatGPT see before they see other tools, that's going to be something that we need to think about. This is not in our hands. We do not have control over what the users of this interface are seeing. And if it's most popular, just like with other conversations around technology in the past, sometimes that gets interpreted as the best option when that may not be the case. So keep that in mind as a phenomenon going forward. We just keep scrolling down. Then we see by ChatGPT. So this is interesting as a section because this might lead us to believe that these are more authoritative because they're quote unquote official. We explored Planty yesterday, which was pretty fun to use, and Dolly, of course, has now multiple years of experience as a high-powered visual image generator. But there are a lot of these that are being created by this team, but do we know if they're actually high quality or not? That's something that we would need to actually explore and dig into a little bit deeper. And as you can see, some of them, like Coloring Book Hero, that could be really fun. And maybe it's not the same type of conversation we need to have around quality versus something like what we were looking at above, like these research and writing tools. But I think it's interesting that OpenAI is highlighting their quote unquote official or endorsed tools. Then we have the 6 categories that I highlighted earlier: writing, productivity, research and analysis. Again, I want to highlight that sometimes major organizations are taking up space in GPTs already. Wolfram Alpha and the Wolfram organization is a long time, high quality data analysis and computational platform that does really advanced computation. And they have a GPT that connects with their databases. So keep that in mind. And then got education here, Khan Academy being another one of those. And also, recognize that individuals' names are showing up here. So these aren't all being developed by massive organizations. You could have your name on here if you created something that was really powerful or useful or exciting or sexy. If somebody found the work that you've created attractive in any way for their needs or uses, it could just as easily show up on one of these lists. Lifestyle, I like to point out some of these ones: astrology, birth chart, deep game for creating games or running role-playing scenarios, fitness, coaching, travel guides, song makers. I like to highlight these because this really does show the diversity and the scope of GPTs and what people are creating. It's pretty exciting how wide-ranging some of this stuff is. And then the end is programming, computer programming. All right, what do you all think about this? How does this feel reviewing the GPTs at a high level?
Pretty cool. I haven't ever, this is one area I just haven't explored. So it makes me feel like there's a lot to dig into for sure.
Did any of them stand out for you? Any other of the GPTs over the others?
I don't know, that music one looks like it could be kind of cool.
The music one, yeah. Where did that go? Song maker. So yeah, if we click on here, create music using musical theory, discover essential songwriting tips to compose music and create songs. This GPT can produce chord progressions, musical notes, song lyrics, soundtracks, and album covers. And some of the examples: draft a viral love song that echoes Romeo and Juliet's tale. I don't see the rest of the prompt. I'm not going to click on starting this chat without seeing the rest of the prompt. But yes, that's an example. Or design an iconic album cover that visualizes these song lyrics. Compose a jingle that brings emojis to life. Or I want to try Songmaker's beta MIDI player. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. And then in this case, this group created a few others that are listed here. Did any of these, and we could do SongMaker if you want, but did any of these look fun enough or interesting enough to try? We've got some time to try one of these, and then I will show you how we can create our own. And if nothing stands out, I can choose one. I chose Planty yesterday. It was not a hassle for me to just choose one.
I'm fine with you choosing one. Maybe Yuri has a different opinion.
Yuri, if you're interested, I'll wait a few seconds to see, and then if not, we can go into one of these. Actually, I see one that I am okay doing. Okay, I'm going to do Scholar GPT, especially since it's trending. Let's see what all the fuss is about. So this was created by awesomegpts.ai. So already we're seeing organizations and websites that are coming up to do this. They're probably waiting for the moment they can start making money off of this. But okay, before we dive in, let's just see what it does. Enhance research with 200 million plus resources and built-in critical reading skills. This is already terrifying me as an educator and a librarian, but that's okay. Access Google Scholar, PubMed, JSTOR, Archive, and more effortlessly. This has actually pretty good rating, 4.2. This is #1 in the research and analytics category, and there's 2 million plus conversations for this. Some conversation starters: find the latest research about AI. I'll provide a research paper link. Please analyze it. I will upload a PDF paper. Use critical skills to read it. Type LS to list my built-in critical reading skills. Not sure what that means exactly, and there's a typo in there, but that's okay. Let's go in. Let's start a chat. So you'll notice that when you start a chat with a GPT, it's going to actually look very similar to using ChatGPT because it is ChatGPT. It is just a customized version of ChatGPT, and sometimes it has extra functionality. So in this case, it's not telling us all of its extra functionality. We could ask it, but I want to start off with just seeing what happens, how it this customized version of ChatGPT, how it sounds if we just do a simple prompt. And I'll just use one of the default prompts here to see how it responds. So find the latest research about AI. Let's do that one. Okay, so what it's doing is it's saying it wants to talk to actions.cider.ai. So in this case, this is connected to an external tool. And I'm going to click allow as an experiment to see what it's doing. And what it's doing is, well, let's wait for it to finish and then we'll look at it. But I do want to highlight, while it is generating, that just like ChatGPT, it's generating fast. It's putting it all in this chat interface, and it's also uses a format that is similar to ChatGPT that we're used to, which is formatted text. So in this case, a numeric list. It's bolding some headers in this case, and it is creating a list of sources. Cool. All right, so let's look at the top and analyze this real quick. Here are some of the latest research papers about artificial intelligence. Now, it used its tool, and we don't know how its tool works Again, we can ask it about that if we want to see if it'll provide any information on where it's getting all of this. But it is pulling new research papers, presumably. And we're going to click on some of these links to see if they're actual links that are working. But it seems to be providing a article name, a summary, the authors, and the publication information. So it's done this with this one. It's done this with all of these. And as we scroll down, it looks like it gives us 10 sources. We'll look at the very bottom in a minute, but let's just test the links here first. So I'm going to click on read more, and it's going to open it up in a new link, or sorry, a new tab. And that's pretty cool. It went to the Korean Journal of Radiology, open access peer-reviewed journal. And we can see that this is the kjronline.org, and this article has a DOI, and it has information on its authors, and it has the academic journal here. So that's great. What a wonderful thing that that link worked, and that link, application of quantitative assessment, etc. That's a, beyond my wheelhouse on all of this, so I have no idea what this is about, but it does give us some subject, coronary artery disease and artificial intelligence. So it does seem to have found an article related to AI. In this case, let's see if this one works, and then we'll move on. This one's called Artificial Intelligence in Islamic Character Education. And here we go. This is from the International Conference on Islamic Studies. And we've got what it says it was providing. It provided us to. And we don't know if this is a peer-reviewed journal, but we do know that multiple authors contributed to it. And we have information on the conference, and we can get to the PDF of this article if it loads, which it is doing. And there we go. So we have another article on AI. So as a test, it looks like this tool has provided us 2 articles on AI. The prompt was very open. We could have asked for a more specific type of AI article and maybe gotten more specific information. But pretty awesome that it did that for us. And then it has this this kind of like footer text here, handling multiple papers, and it's advertising more tools. So now let's see what happens when we click on this link. It takes us to that website that it told us it was talking to earlier, cider.ai. And is it going to load? It looks like it might actually be in like kind of a loop here. Let's just go to cider.ai and see what it is. Okay, so here we go. This is the marketplace, right? Here is a third-party tool, which I mentioned some of these GPTs connect with, and this is essentially an advertisement landing page for this tool. It allows us to download this tool as an additional app, and then, of course, there's going to be a catch. So we can use the limited functionality it provides in that Scholar GPT, but if we want to use the additional features and use it in a more robust and endless way, we will have to pay to have access to it. So think about that. Was this too good to be true, that we were able to get all of this information almost immediately, and then links to the research, et cetera? Well, maybe eventually we're going to have to cough up some cash if we want to get access to this technology ongoing. Does anyone have any questions about this one or thoughts? How did it seem?
Yeah, it just made me wonder how it chose these specific articles, like it says some recent, like, but it picked 10, right? So I'm imagining, like, if I'm looking for research, typically I'll just open up the library database and type in my search and get pages and, this big scope. And so to select these very specific articles, it looked like a lot of them were like sort of health skewed. I don't know if that was the case. We moved fast, but well, maybe not all. Yeah, that one's not health.
Yes. And one thing to note is that maybe there are more health articles in the context of AI than others. I certainly know there are a lot, but those are good questions. So why don't we just take a moment and then we'll move on to creating a GPT and let's see about what it says. How you select which articles to provide. How did you select? Let's just refer to the ones that it provided. All right, and so it's just like ChatGPT. It's using the LLM to chat in plain language, so to speak. It's seemingly not going to give us all of the information we need, but it does say it's providing a diverse range of applications, including healthcare, education, and so on. What sources do you pull your articles from? Let's see. Now, I want to also recognize that with proprietary tools comes proprietary information, right? So it might have customizations, and that third-party tool, Cider, may operate in a way that is private. Like it's not necessarily going to give up its secret recipe because then it could just be copied into other tools. That's how most of our technology in this world works. It's not open source. So keep that in mind as well. It does say the articles I provided are sourced from a variety of academic journals and conference proceedings. So now it's actually showing, seems like it's showing the actual sources it pulled these ones from. Typically retrieved from Google Scholar. So it might be tapping into Google Scholar, like the API for Google Scholar or something. All right. Any thoughts on that before we move on, Melanie?
No, that was helpful. Thanks.
Cool. So let's go back to Explore GPTs. The easiest way to create a GPT is by clicking this plus create button. But if you were on the main screen, let's see if that works. Nope, that link is still not working. My GPTs does not work. But so let's go back to this plus create is how you would get to the create a GPT. Now we have 5 minutes left, so we're not going to be able to dive into this too deeply, but I will show you essentially how this works. So if you were creating a GPT, what you would do is follow the prompts that it gives you on the left-hand side of the screen. It kind of has like a not a tutorial, but like a pre-generated workflow for creating the GPT. So it asks you, what would you like to make? And you can answer that. And as you answer its questions, it will fill out what the GPT is. And then in the configure tab here, this allows you to go a little bit deeper. So you can add an image to create or to go with your GPT. So I'll show you my froggy friend GPT here in a minute, but you can literally put anything in there. You can give it a name, you can give it a description, and these are not going to actually impact what the GPT does. It's mostly for reference for yourself or for the world, if you choose to make this a public GPT. And then instructions. So this actually impacts what the GPT is going to do when a user is interacting with it. Those conversation starters are those pre-generated ones, like what we clicked on when we used the example GPT. And then very important are the last two. One is knowledge. So I mentioned you could upload files to ChatGPT in general to inform how it behaves and how it responds. So you could upload, for example, a data set if you wanted to customize your GPT to interact with specific types of data. Or let's say you had a book and you wanted it to refer to that book in all of its responses. Like, let's say you used the Torah or the Quran or something, and you wanted it to be a religious GPT. You could have that as the primary source material for the version of the Bible that you're looking at, or the religious text that you're looking at, and it would refer to that when asked. And then how these organizations and individuals are connecting to tools like this third-party CIDR tool is through this final section here, capabilities and actions. So you can allow the GPT to access the live web if you want it to, or you can disable that. You can also allow it to create images if you want it to through DALL-E technology. And you can also allow it to interpret computer code if you want it to. And then you can connect it to third-party apps using APIs under this actions screen. So that's everything that can lead to the GPTs. Now let's take a look real quick at the Froggy Friend GPT. So if I click on it, this Froggy Friend, I am not Angela, that is my colleague. This is her ChatGPT subscription, but a friendly frog character responding with playful frog-like behavior. What's your favorite insect to eat? Tell me about your pond. What do you do for fun? Why do you like lily pads? So this is a ChatGPT character, so to speak, that you can role play with. Why do you like lily pads? If we click on that, Ribbit, oh, I just love lily pads. They're like my comfy little beds on the pond. Flower emoji, they're nice and cool, perfect for sunbathing and taking naps. Plus, they keep me safe from big fishies down below. And you know what? I can hop from one to another and play all day. Splish, splash, ribbit, frog emoji, water emoji. So this is kind of like a kid-friendly character that I created. And so if we look at how that's actually operating, if we click on Froggy Friend and we click on the drop down, we can go into Edit GPT. And here is what it looks like on the back end. So we've got the preview that we just saw. Welcome. Is there anything Froggy Friend should be doing better? Anything you'd like to change? So as someone who has created this GPT, I can use this prompt interface to edit the GPT. So that's kind of an interesting, like meta level of editing sophistication where I can use ChatGPT to edit itself. But if we look at the Configure tab, here is where I have added the image, and I used DALL-E to create this friendly frog picture. I put the name in there. I typed this out. I created the name for this, or the description for this. And then this was actually generated, these instructions were generated as I went through the prompts in the ChatGPT setup that I briefly showed you a couple minutes ago. And so I'm not going to read all of this because of time, but this GPT is a frog character named Froggy Friend. Froggy Friend responds as if it were a frog in every interaction, focusing on activities and behaviors typical of frogs. It uses simple, playful language and incorporates frog-like sounds and behavior in its responses, and so on. So this is the instructions. This is telling ChatGPT how it should interact with the users in every situation when they're using this GPT. And then it has the conversation starters, and I could create additional ones if I wanted to. I don't have any specific knowledge, but let's say I had created a children's book about a frog, or let's say I got permission from the author of Frog and Toad or something, and I wanted it to like reference that content. I could upload the digital like ebook or PDF of that children's book, and it would bring some of that into its instructions. And then if, let's say I had, like right now, it can do web browsing and it can do image generation. Let's say I wanted to connect it to, for example, use this as an example yesterday, like a database of frogs that are being studied in wetlands throughout Washington state. I don't know if that exists, but let's say there was that database. I could potentially connect it to that, and then it would be able to like do some cool interaction with that database. And so that might not be the best use case for a child-friendly froggy friend, but it is possible. And then finally, at the top, we can see that this is live. This GPT does exist. It's operating, but it is set to private. Only I can access this at this point. And then there are settings. I could change the settings in here. I believe also I could change the settings in. I think I would have to change the settings in that last screen to make it public. So yeah, that's Froggy Friend. That's an example of one that I created as a test GPT. Any thoughts about the GPT creation process? Any thoughts on creating a GPT yourself? Are you inspired to try creating a customized version of ChatGPT to do a function or meet your needs?
I mean, potentially. I think it's an interesting idea. I always read about on the One Useful Thing blog. He's always talking about the GPTs that he's built. And I'm always intrigued. I don't know yet what my need would be. Do you find you're using these? Is this part of your productivity?
So the thing that for me that I dove into this a little bit yesterday, the thing for me is that I tend to use Gen AI tools, and I know what I want to use them for already. The one thing that I see as really beneficial for the marketplace is for people that might need a little bit of guidance. For example, if I click on ChatGPT, this is overwhelming to some people. This is a lot. They might not know what to ask when they're trying to accomplish something. And they might not know necessarily what their need even is. And so they might not use ChatGPT because it's way too open-ended. When we go into a GPT that has been customized and focused, I think cognitively, this can be very, very helpful for some users. And so right now, I don't see the need for it. If I want to do scholarship, I could probably actually do a lot of the same functionality that Scholar GPT does just using regular GPT because it has access to the internet. It can actually pull articles for me. And I don't need that guidance. But down the road, maybe there will be something that emerges that ends up benefiting me by way of the GPT model, the customization model. And I also think that using the Explorer and just looking at what people are doing is incredibly inspiring because I might not know what ChatGPT is even capable of. And so I might go in here just to get inspired, just to rethink my understanding or assumptions about the technology and also how it's evolving in our culture. And that really is the same way that I look at the phone apps that are coming out, the apps in stores, the games that are emerging. These types of marketplaces are great representations of the ecosystem. They're not the only representation of the ecosystem of creativity and creators' work, but a really nice, optimized, straightforward space to browse and get inspired.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a great point.
Well, with that, let's just go to the end here. A reminder that the recording will be saved and shared over email after this workshop presentation is done. And later today, this is the last workshop presentation of the quarter. So later today, I will be sending out feedback survey to every registrant. Doesn't matter if you have seen if you participated live or you're watching the recording, please fill out that survey. One of the main things I use it for is to inform what presentations and workshops I do going forward and what worked and what didn't work, what was helpful and what was not helpful. So it's really important to get that from all of you. So thank you very much for doing that in advance. And thanks for being here. Melanie and Yuri, I appreciate you listening or participating. It's been great.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
I hope you have a lovely day.
You too. See you later.